Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon metro area. Now, for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that we have decided to talk about. And this evening, my guest is John Sweeney, and we'll be talking about all sorts of things going on right now in the world that need to be addressed by informed, intelligent people, especially people I like. John is a fellow progressive activist who I've known for a while, and he's also a friend of Bruce.
Bruce Broussard, yeah.
Bruce Broussard, who is also running for mayor of Portland, Oregon.
Correct.
That's a little boost for you there, Bruce. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, you bet.
I'm looking forward to this. We chatted a little bit at the East Side Democrats meeting on...
Yeah, the East Side Democratic Club,
East Democratic Club, yeah. So we're going to go on, as you know, the show goes in 2 parts. We'll talk about who you are personally and other stuff about you. And then we'll get into other broader things that we're going to ask questions about, that you're curious about, and you want to get some information out about it so that people are well informed. Pardon me. You ready?
I'm ready.
I'm not sure I'm ready yet.
You're ready.
Yeah.
I watch your shows. You're always ready.
Yeah. So, if I were to ask your best friend, who is John, what would your best friend say? John is what? Be your best friend. John is?
Well, he's an honest guy and been good to people, and he's good with people, and a lot of them who have worked for me when I was a park supervisor, you know, they got on as seasonals, and they got on to the city of Portland as permanents, and a lot of them I knew that were in the Army National Guard, and I recruited some of them to come into the National Guard, and some of them were ex-service people, and so they had this second career, and
so he would tell me all those things about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Let's save some of those so you can tell me directly instead of having John's best friend tell me.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And when and where were you born?
I was born on Sunday, 21st of January, 1940 in Glenada, Oregon. And
you're an Oregonian.
Oh, yes. Born, and it's across the river, the Sayula River from Florence, you know,
Florence, Oregon.
Florence, Oregon. And you hear these small towns, you sneeze, you miss it. Well, there's an S-turn going through Glenada. So if you sneeze going south, you run into a bank. You go sneeze going north, you run over a bank. Do not sneeze going through Glenada.
Do not sneeze, you'll be in trouble.
You're not going to make it, no.
Is that how the show is going to be this evening with those little anecdotes?
Well, if you like, you know.
I like.
Oh, okay.
Of course, yeah. And is there anything significant about your national cultural heritage worth mentioning to the viewers?
My mother's family came here from Norway after World War I, and in fact my grandfather originally was going to be on the Lusitania, but he missed the boat and it got sunk.
Yes.
And my father's family, the Sweeneys, came here in 1732 to help the Americans fight the British, so being against the British isn't anything new. And I'm a direct descendant of Cornelius Van Horn, who bought Long Island from the Indians for a handful of beads. And
how'd you learn about all of that?
Well, my dad was talking to me, and then descended of the Barclays, which is in the very northern tip of Scotland. My dad's dad was working for the company, and so his boss says he didn't want him catting around with his daughter, so you're fired. And so anyway, James ran off with my grandmother there, and so anyway, that's how that worked, and so heritage is Norwegian, Scotch, Irish, and Pennsylvania Dutch.
You name it, you've got a little of it.
Yeah, and they talk about, well, what did your people do? I says, well, traditional occupations, mercenary. You name them, we killed them.
You named them, we killed them. Boy, hey.
And my dad's second cousin was the leader on the Nagasaki raid.
Mm-hmm.
So we may not have been first, but let's hope we were last.
Yeah. And do you have a religious preference? Now, if I ask you a question that you don't care to answer, you can tell me I don't want to answer that, or just ignore me.
Well, the deal is, I feel I'm a Christian, and I was baptized in Episcopal. Mostly went to a Lutheran church when I was young. I haven't been to church in a long time. So I don't thump the Bible, but the deal is, due to some of my military experiences when I was in the Army Reserve, the deal is the guy upstairs likes me a lot. So.
And you think that's true?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right. How about your formal education?
Okay, I started at Giles Lake School, and for those, if you look beyond what is Montgomery Park, the building which used to be Montgomery Ward, out there in the wartime housing in Giles Lake School.
And what state is that?
That was here in Oregon,
Okay.
in Portland, yeah. And the school was half white and half black. See, so the deal is, I grew up with lots of friends, and when you're kids, you're just kids. And then at the end of the 4th grade, I moved out to Southeast Portland and went to Kellogg School, and then my dad, who had been in World War II, got out, and then he went in the Guard, and then they did away with the draft in 1948, so they come looking for a lot of veterans, and they offer my a deal. And so 1951, they ordered everybody over a certain rank to move on to post, so I moved to Fort Lewis, and I went to DuPont School, and then when he went to Alaska, we came back, and I went back to Kellogg School. And then I went to Benson Tech, and I was going to be an aviation major. And then my dad went to Okinawa. He'd been overseas a lot of times, like Korea, and he had preference to go where he wanted to, and he normally picked Fort Lewis. Well, so he decided, no, the family was going to be together, so I went to Okinawa. And I was on Okinawa 21 months, 13 days, and 2 hours. Arrived at 9 and left at 11.
How old were you when you got there?
I was 18 to finish my senior year of school, and I stayed there until I come back. And so, and I pulled some active duty with the regular units there, and met some of my friends that I went to high school with, and they were in the Marine Corps and the Navy. And
now you volunteered for the Army, or you drafted?
I volunteered. I joined the Army National Guard when I was 16.
Uh-huh.
See, so when I registered for the draft when I turned 18, why I got a 1D because I was in the Guard, and and then I just stayed in, and then
how long were you in?
3 days short of 28 years.
My gosh, 28 years. You got.
I enjoyed it most of the time, and I was with the Portland Parks for 33 years, and I enjoyed it most of the time. There are no perfect jobs. And then after high school, I hung around, and then I got my commission with the high school education and a high OCT score. So they wanted college for the sake of college, so I went to Portland Community College. I was going to be a philosophy major. I figured if they wanted wanted college for the sake of college, I was going to give them...
Get some smarts.
I was going to give them something that's close to nothing. But I talked to somebody, and because my branch was ordnance, which had a lot of civilian applications, I was able to get a lot of credit. So then I became a management major. So I have a management degree from Portland Community College, and then of course once I got my commission through the Oregon Military Academy, I went to my ordnance officer's basic in Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland, and then did my officer's advance in Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland. Then I went and to Command General Staff College through Reserve School and Correspondence.
What rank did you retire at?
Captain.
Captain.
Which is an 03, like in the Navy and Coast Guard, is like a full lieutenant. So.
You kind of like education, don't you?
Well, the deal is that I went to Portland Community College and I paid for it as I went along, so I didn't have a big debt. In fact, and then the stuff in the military stuff was free, and it always paid to be a little ahead. And when I went from the 3670th Heavy Equipment Maintenance Company into the 82nd RTOC, which is a corps level unit, because I've been to Command General Staff College, a lot of my I already knew how that worked. In fact, they were surprised. It says, "Well, how do you know all that stuff? You're only a lieutenant." I says, "Well, I pay attention."
Tell me something. I have a student card for Portland Community College and one for PSU, and I'm 88 this year, and I'll be 110, and I'll still have a student ID card for one of those places because I believe and love education. Do you still do any classes anywhere?
I've been doing some Hillsdale College online
Really?
studies.
You never quit.
Well, it's really interesting. You have real experts talking to you, and the deal is you basically in about 2 hours you get a 300-page book, just bang, it's there, So it's and especially they have their classes, their presentation, and then they have a follow-up with somebody that asks more questions to be a little more detailed.
Did you have any time frame from the time that you retired from the military to you went to the Park Service?
The National Guard and Reserve basically is part-time, and there's a few times. I know that there was 3 times that I was in a unit that was going to be called up, and I joined in February '56, and so when England and France went into Suez, the 41st Infantry Division, which covered Oregon and Washington, was next on the barrel, and so we were close, but the diplomats settled it. And then when I got my commission in '71, we went to Torley Army Depot, Utah, and they needed a maintenance company to go to Vietnam, and we lost the twin cops. We come back home, and the 3669th in Montana went home and packed up for Vietnam. And then the Grenada event, our unit changed its area of operation, so we were off the books 3 weeks. So if Grenada would happen 2 weeks one way or the other, we would have been called up and gone to Grenada.
So you went to Vietnam?
No, I missed going to Vietnam.
And you missed going to Grenada?
Yes.
You missed everything.
Yeah.
I missed World War II. I was in the occupation for 27 months, but I didn't see any horrendous stuff going on.
Yeah, well, the deal is, when I was in the reserve, I'd show up for drill, and there's a car there, so we would go a different place here and there, and usually doing INR, intelligence reconnaissance, which is sneak and peek. So usually we go someplace and look around, and the 2 most valuable people there was the son of a Chicago safecracker and the librarian. So they would get in, open the safe, and they lay the stuff out, and the guy would take pictures and then put the stuff back in, and then we'd get out. So
you've got that pin, and it looks kind of like the Good Conduct Medal, because I wasn't in combat, so I had a good conduct, and maybe a couple of others serving and when I was in World War II. But I'd never seen that before, and I asked you earlier, tell me what it means again.
It's from the unit I belong, organization called VUMS, Veterans Underage Military Service. And
underage military service?
Yeah, because you're supposed to be 17 with parents' permission.
Yeah. And
18 on your own hook, and I joined at 16, lied about my age.
Lied? You don't lie.
Well,
I know.
I adjusted things, but anyway, the deal is, and they had people join as young as 12 for World War II, and
12.
In fact, there's a movie out called Too Young a Hero, starring Ricky Schrader and Schroeder, and he was from the Dalles, and he joined the Navy, and he was on the battleship South Dakota in World War II in the Philippines. So. And that was an interesting thing. But there's a lot of them, and they had several of them that did get killed because they joined the Marines, and and Army infantry and stuff like that. So, you know, people ask why I joined. I says, you know, you're a young kid, you get to shoot, you know, drive a 6-wheel drive truck with automatic transmission.
Ooh,
I
man,
can really
at
go.
that age, heavens.
And you know, when things don't work right, and you have all these guys that are wizards that make things work, and then of course there's the weapons, you know, the 50 caliber machine guns and all those kind of things. You know, for most people, you only get to see them in the movies, and here's a chance you get the real thing. See, so and you get to work with that time, you know, the guys that had been in World War II in Korea, and of course the people in World War II was, say, quote, a good war, and that's kind of stretching it, you know. And
yeah.
So I'd been places and done things. You know, I had to go different places. You know, Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland, Camp Shelby, Mississippi.
You've been all over the place.
Well, quite a few places. Fort Irwin, California. So, and you can see how the screw-ups are. They went to Camp Fort Irwin, California. It's in the desert. The 2 months before we got there, they had more rain than they had in 10 years. So everything was green, looked like a jungle, you know. And so we were ordered to wear the jungle camouflage covers on our helmets. I mean, we stood out. They might as well have been pink, you know.
But tell me, what did you do after your last formal work? How long has it been since you've been formally retired from everything?
I took a civil service test for the city when I was 24. I got hired with the parks when I was 25 as a laborer, and then I got promoted to be an equipment operator, mower operator. I used to cut grass 18 feet at a time, and then I got to be a foreman and a supervisor. So they offered me a buyout just before my 58th birthday. So, and then I was doing some land management consulting and stuff like that.
So have you been working recently anywhere? You got any additional income besides your pensions?
No. And a lot of times I do some consulting pro bono. You know, that's because when I was doing the consulting, the objective was to eliminate pesticides.
Oh.
See, so.
Are you a tree hugger?
No, my mom's brothers were loggers, so, you know, it's taking down a tree is just kind of taking down like a supersized piece of grass, you know. So, you know, if they suddenly were to reclaim all the wood around here, a lot of us would be in a vacant lot with no house. Yeah.
So, do you have a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend? I got to be politically correct here, you know.
I have a wife and a daughter and 3 grandchildren. I have 3 foster kids, and works out to about, and they've got kids of 7. So I got 7 foster grandkids. So I got 10 grandkids and 4 kids. So.
You can keep count that high? I lost count many years ago.
Well, I kind of keep on it, you know. And
so you're just the one daughter, huh?
Yep. She lives in Apple Valley, California, and so I go down 2 or 3 times a year, and I try to go down in the spring and the fall when it's not too hot and the roads are good enough to travel, because I really don't like going through security theater at the airport.
Who does?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about your political persuasion? Where are you, on the left or the right or whatever, politically?
Well, I consider I registered as a Democrat 3 days after my 21st birthday, which was the law at the time, and I voted in every election. And so always been a registered Democrat, but I feel I'm on the conservative side or moderate side, because the deal is that I like firearms, been shooting since I was 6, and involved in several shooting organizations, and I belong to a big gun club and shoot fairly often and teach people to shoot. And but the other things, you know, it's like people, the control freaks, they want to get in your face and tell you how to live, you know, and it says, you know, if you don't like firearms, don't have one, and if you don't like abortions, don't have one, but keep your big snot locker out of my business.
Your colorful language is just interesting. I haven't heard that for a long, long time.
Well, could have called it a booger bunker, you know. But the deal is, you know, and
are you going to vote for Trump? You don't have to answer that.
First of all, we got to get through the primaries, and then we'll see what happens there. But the thing is, I'm going to vote for Bernie.
Boy, you're really slipping off the left end of that continuum, aren't you?
Well, you know,
I am, you know.
well, the deal is that, you know, when my grandnephew graduated from West Point, why, after that, why we went up, went across New Hampshire and Vermont and into Maine, and I know some people from Vermont, and it's really a nice place. And
Of course.
you know, it's amazing. They have almost no gun laws and almost no crime. So, you know, and then so more law does not mean more justice.
Of course.
Yeah. So, and
is Bernie going to manage to beat Hillary in the primaries?
I sure hope so. Because, well, you know, they have some of the rumors out that if she gets the nomination, they're going to arrest her for Benghazi. So
They never quit, do they?
no, never quit.
Yeah. Okay, memberships. You probably belong to a bunch of organizations. You want to mention a few of them or not?
Sure, the American Legion and the East Side Democratic Club, Veterans Underage Military Service.
That's in Portland, East Side Democratic Club.
Yep. And
But they're not necessarily a Democrat political party, right?
they started up to fight the sales tax. Oregon does not have a sales tax. But anyway,
Yay.
got to remind people of that. And of course, I belong to the National Rifle Association and Gun Owners of America. Also, there's the Law Enforcement Alliance of America and the Oregon Sheriff's Association. And
We need law enforcement.
yeah, and they need a little restraint, you know. But but I belong to a lot of them, and the thing is that you know, the deal is the criminal element is only 2% of the population, and you know the press is out there. They're trying to give you the impression there's a boogeyman behind every bush, which is not the case.
They have their own agenda too. The
That's
press,
right.
the corporate, the mainstream media.
Yeah. The criminal element, half is into white collar crimes, you know, and you know, just think Bernie Madoff. You know, he stole billions, and he was the pillar of society until things went haywire.
I thought he was a hero of yours.
No, no,
No,
Bernie Sanders, not.
That's a different Bernie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How about any persons from the past or alive today that you look up to or admire? Political or social or family or anything comes to mind?
Well, I liked Ronald Reagan and Claire Chennault and.
Claire Chennault. Say a little about Claire. You got a bunch of young people out there. Claire Chennault. I know who he is.
Claire Chennault was the leader of the Flying Tigers.
In Asia.
And in fact, they did wonders against the Japanese, you know. And you know, they talk about the fuel being like E10 gas, you know. They were running those. They're so short of gasoline. They were flying those planes on 75% rice alcohol. So this alcohol gas is nothing new. So
They're P-40s.
P-40s. It was really one of the best planes. It was really maligned, and one of the things is it was the last of the quote modern fighters without boosted controls. And it says you can go out to the beach when the guys are in their trunks, and you could see a P-40 pilot because of the way you had to control them on takeoffs is that they had one leg was bigger than the other. Because the rest of them, when they got the P-47s and P-51s, they had power
cables and levers.
Yeah, so the others had cables and levers, but they had boosted controls. So
Yes.
but the deal is P-40s didn't have that. So
Yeah. So did we ask you about any people that you admired?
Well, yeah, Ronald Reagan. And,
Yes, of course you did. We've been there.
Of course, my dad, you know, he was quite an influence, and you know, Claire Chenault and probably John Wayne and Clint Eastwood and you know,
Make my day.
yeah. So,
But your stories are so interesting. I lose track of where I am with my cheat sheet here, what I'm supposed to ask you. But we're pretty well on board here. So let's take a break for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and talk about the other stuff that we're going to talk about. Okay?
Great.
Mr. Director, can we do that, sir? Oh, thank you for staying tuned. And for your viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people about who they are and whatever it is that we're going to continue talking about. And so let's go to the second half of the show where we're talking about you mentioned education. What would you like to do with education in Oregon? And probably your thoughts about education would apply across the country.
Yes. You know, I've talked to a lot of people, and you know, the thing is, you talk about improving education, and they want to turn it into more education. And the trouble is, what they need to do is truly improve the K through 12, because what you have now is so many people come out of high school, and then when they go to college, they've got to spend a year on preparatory stuff, which is remedial, before they could really start their college, real college learning. And so it's a 5-year program instead of a 4, instead of being better prepared coming out of high school.
But if the K through 12 was okay, you wouldn't have to have that special consideration before you could go to college.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, you showed up in college, and they give you a test. Then they say, well, you can't take a 100 level, which is for freshmen. You have to take, 60 or 70 or something like that, and they are not transferable. And of course, I like to emphasize to people, especially if you're paying the freight. In other words, you're paying for your own college. Do that first couple of years in a community college or regional college, whatever they call them at the different places, junior college, because the first 2 years on college transfer at a community college and the first 2 year in a 4-year institution are almost identical, because it's the third and fourth year that you really get into your major.
Sure. And
then maybe the thing is that you get in and you're looking around, and the thing is maybe you change your major, because there's been a lot of people, they change their major, and that's all of a sudden gets them into the 5 and 6 year programs.
Yes.
So, in fact, the deal is, seems to be a trend now of a lot of young people are saying they're going to take a year off to kind of get their head on straight, or some of the people go into service or something like that, or they go out and they work, and then when they start college, they have a clearer view of what they want to do, because sometimes maybe they get a job in an industry that they thought they wanted, or their internship says, no, that's not what I wanted. We were talking earlier, I took a couple classes at PCC in computer programming, and no, I don't want to do that. End up hobbled up a little old man, 90 years old, So, and I'd work for the Portland Parks, and did a lot of things from picking up trash and swabbing toilets, and I got in the machines, and mowing and the community guards when they came out, and I rototilled almost all of them, plowed them and rototilled them, and then become a supervisor and that kind of thing, and then got interested in politics. And it's amazing how little people are paying attention, because they've got their own busy lives, and then when something happens, they wonder what happened. Well, it's
time has gone by.
Things have happened, and and this is, and like on education, one of the real things that puts your school, because I was on the Multnomah Education Service District Board.
Multnomah County here in Oregon, yeah.
Yeah, actually the Multnomah Education Service District was a little bigger than the county.
Okay.
And one of the real problems with the school, especially if you have a school system is a little large, like Portland and some of them, the NASS, the National Association of School Superintendents. Now, you've known in the past that they need a new superintendent, so they do a nationwide search, and then they make an offer, and it says, well, I can make more money in Cincinnati or Tallahassee, see? Well, I'd tell them, what you really need is a doorknob print on your rear, see, as you leave. And but the thing is that most of these places, what they need to do is really cultivate people to come up through the ranks. Because if you look at a lot of organizations where, like police, fire, and military, most people come up through the ranks, that, and so they have an attachment to the citizens in that city and county. It's like our present superintendent of Portland Public Schools. She came with her predecessor. Then the predecessor moved on, and then she moved up. But she had never taught in any Oregon school.
So you want to do something with the education system such that we have a better outcome.
That's
you want
correct.
to improve it.
That's correct.
What do we need to do to improve it, to make it better?
Well, one of the things is they always talk about more money and more money. Well, the trouble with Portland is that when we had ballot measure 5 back in 1990, and it put the property tax limitation, cities, counties, and special districts got the axe just bang in about 8 months later. See? But the schools, ESDs, and community colleges had a 5-year step down. But Portland Public Schools, they just kept spending money like drunken sailors, and the city of Portland and Multnomah County several of the times would give them $1 million each. It's a one-time deal, and towards the end it says, what, like the 6 or 7 times before? I says,
How has that affected the education system?
well, they just waste so much money, see? And what they need to do is have a new plan, and I've submitted plans that, for instance, when I went to my freshman year of high school, I had social studies and English together. So I had the same teacher for 2 periods. Mm-hmm. And of course what I liked is I got a social studies grade and an English grade. And when I had to start having trouble, they'd kind of correct us as we go along. And then the sophomore year was just English, and the junior year you had social studies and English separate, and then same with the senior year, is put them together. And then for the sophomores is have them have the English and speech, because one of the things is they had a tech show at Benson Tech, and anyway they had the speech class got in there, and the popular kids are in there, and they had to talk, and they're always popular because they make a lot of noise. Well, all of a sudden they had to say something that counted, and when I took a speech class when I was a senior, the deal is, hey, some of these loudmouths can't put 2 words together in a line, and these people that are wallflowers, they're pretty smart, so.
There's been a move recently about testing so that we can see if students reached a certain educational level to move on to the next level in their education. What do you think about this plethora of testing going on? Is there too much testing going on, or not enough, or what?
There's a reaction to it. The thing is that you have to test as you go along. Now the deal is this Common Core is actually done by an outside organization. So the deal is when you get close, they'll change it. It's kind of like the way the British negotiate. They keep moving the goalposts, see?
Okay.
So what you need to do is say, okay, this is what we need, and we need to close the gap, and then tweak it at the end. Now, you start going to school, and it's kind of the midterm final, midterm final, midterm final, and that's good if you become a school teacher. But that's not how life works. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in the military, you go to the schools, and you have these tests ever so often. And the deal is, of course, like through basic training, the final is when you go out in the field for field training exercise. But you don't have the midterm and the final because you're testing all the way along. Mm-hmm. And I suggest that, and they don't want to do that because that's not their world. But that's what I suggested several times, that you have it more like real world, because you're an auto mechanic. The deal is, you don't do half the engine and ask the boss if this is okay. The deal is, you can finish that engine and then you move on to the next one.
So you have two tracks in the educational system. It sounds like to me where people are going to be tradesmen or craftsmen or something of that nature. And then you have the other track where they're going to be using their head or their brain or their thinking rather than being craftsmen or those kinds of things.
Well, say somebody that's going to be, they're going to be an accountant, or they're going to they're going to be a psychologist or something like that. Rather than go through the ritual of the midterm final, midterm final, midterm final, the fact that they have that liberal arts teaching, and then you're moving through. So then the deal is, you're having smaller tests as you go along, and whether it's in the technical trade or whether it's in an intellectual trade, mm-hmm. you know, it's for the people that aren't from the eastern seaboard. You know, when I was back there for my officers basic and advanced at Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland, passed around, one of the things off the side of the road, you see an old muzzle loading cannon. Well, you actually have to take a look. Was that from the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, or the Civil War? Because there's so much history back there, and you're raised back there, and you have more of the history out there because it's, you know, around you all the places, you know, like Gettysburg and Lexington Green and a few things like that. Where out here you don't have that. So, and I'd like to see the education, especially the K through 12, where you're doing some of the local things, because I remember in the 8th grade, the history that they taught was your state. You had to so you could, you know, learn about Oregon, see. And let's see, and I think 6th grade it was South America, and I forget what was in 7th grade. But the thing is that and especially if you could teach people the history, and maybe they develop an appreciation of history, and I think that would get people to be more aware as they go along. You know, it's like on the cable TV and the OPB, you know, the public radio and television that has these nice programs.
So education isn't doing what it needs to do to prepare citizens for life, is it?
No.
Well, how would we change it to prepare citizens for life, whether they're in a trade or whether they're intellectual or art or whatever? How do we do that with the education system? How would you change it?
Well, one of the things is, like I said, is changing the programs of what it's going to be through the K through 12 system. You know, what is it they should have as they go along, as they come up. And then when I was coming through in the 6th and 7th grade and 8th grade, it had shop classes, so we got to do some things with tools and different things. And even if somebody takes the intellectual track through college, the thing is, they've had hands-on with some tools, so the fact that they can basically fix their own house, you know.
We better stop, because you and I can get on the track and keep going and going, and we have some more questions. Can I keep going?
Sure, let's go for it.
What would you do to get cleaner air? Air is not clean enough now? Why is that?
Well, we're working for clean air, but one of the things is, in fact, I wrote an essay that I sent to the High Country News, and it's on the back of a handout, and that is to remove the catalytic converters from the cars and from the diesel, see? Because they come out with unleaded gasoline in mid-1974 for the 1975 cars, which had catalytic converters. Now, one of the things that they did is that there was the back pressure, so it takes more fuel. So you're supposed to be more economical. They've come up a little bit. If you were to take a catalytic converter off, you would take a car that, say, has a catalytic converter, and you, instead of getting 32 miles a gallon, it'd get 40 miles a gallon. So not only would you use less gasoline, you would process less air, because the lean burn, each gallon of gas runs through 16 gallons of air.
But aren't you going to pollute the air more with your
No.
catalytic converters off?
No, because one of the things that happened at the time that they come on, they took the lead out of the gasoline, but the sulfur was still there. And you know, in your 6th grade science classes, heat rises, cold falls, and the hotter it is, the higher it will go and the further will carry. And the way the Earth rotates and the prevailing winds, that's why I had a lot of trouble with acid rain in the eastern seaboards, in the eastern part of the continents. But the thing is, you take the catalytic converters off, and also the thing is, so you're taking the sulfur out, and there was a report that they take the sulfur out of the motor fuels, and they're reducing the sulfur, be the equivalent of removing 1.5 million vehicles from the road. Also, the thing is, on a running engine, the temperature of the manifold is 800 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah. And it would come through and just cool down as it goes to the back. And if you could get to the back, you put your hand there. But on the 1974s and newer, 75s and newer, it comes down to the catalytic converter, and it superheats the exhaust to 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit. And so when it comes out the end, it's hotter than it would normally be. And so the thing is, if you took the catalytic converters off, you'd be reducing all that heat right there. Then the other thing is, the outside of the catalytic converter is 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And they tell you in these cars, do not park in tall brush or grass. Yeah. And in fact, in the fire season in California for 2015, there was a car crashed alongside the road, and they believed that car started that fire, and it burned up 120,000 acres. And an acre is about the size of a football field or soccer field, you know, to give. So, but that's the other part. The thing is that you'd have less fires. I remember watching one time a guy had trying to impress his girlfriend, was going to do a film, and they went out to have a little lunch and wine. It's brand new. I think it was a Porsche or something like that, and it didn't have the license plate on it. It just had a little temporary sticker. So he stopped, and they're filming, and all of a sudden looked around, and his car was in fire.
Set fire to the
hadn't even
grass.
gone through a tank of gas, you know. And they're not a cheap car.
So that's a consideration about the air pollution situation. What about industrial pollution and the factories and all the things that are using fossil fuels? Don't they contribute hugely to the contamination of the air that we breathe?
Yeah, that's on like on the gasoline. They started in cars, moved catalytic converters up. On the diesel trucks, they started with the heavy trucks in 2007 and worked down to the cars. So they have somewhat the same thing of superheating the fuel. And in fact, a friend of mine was a test driver, and the thing went haywire, and he was in Montana, and he had to bail out of the truck. And luckily, in the 3 feet of snow, and there was a policeman there who was late getting back, who saved my friend. It was my friend would be dead. The other thing is, for a lot of the electricity in the east is generated on stationary diesel engines, and there's 5 grades of diesel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And most of the cars and trucks run number 2. And when it gets cold, you add an anti-gelling agent, or you go to number 1 diesel. And in Canada, number 2 diesel is summer diesel, and number 1 is winter diesel, because a number 2 can't run on 3, 4, 5, but a number 5 can run on all of them. So if you would eliminate number 5 diesel, I work down, so I do away with 3, 4, and 5. Then they would just have to rejet their engines. You know, they're going to talk about it's being tough. Well, you depressurize the system, and then you take take the jets out and you put the new jets in. It's almost as easy as changing the spark plug on a lawnmower. But that's the fuel part, and then of course there's coal and stuff like that.
Well, I'm not getting an impression from you that you're not talking about the contribution made by fossil fuels, period. Electrical generation and things, and burning coal, and those kinds of fossil fuels that are polluting the air like crazy. I think there's no question about that. Don't you think that those cause a lot of air pollution?
That's true, yeah. And what I'd like to see actually is to do a little more perfecting of the solar and wind energy. In fact, different things. In fact, the French on their wind turbines, they have one that you could have it in a desert environment. Not only will it generate electricity, it will produce 16 gallons of water.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could be in the Sahara, 100 miles from any water, and it will produce 16 gallons of water per hour, which is about 400 gallons in a 24-hour day.
Why aren't we doing that in this country?
Well, maybe the deal is, what I subscribe to, when the people with lots of money can make more money, whatever the problem is, it'll be solved. So it's all about money, and
what about ethics and morality and those things that are more important than profit and money?
Well, it goes back to the people that have the money, and it's a matter if they can make the money. And the other thing is, it's our political system. You listen to the professional politicians, and they like to talk about the crisis, this crisis, that crisis, to keep you all pumped up, because they want things turned up to keep you off balance rather than get to solving real problems. It's kind of like Social Security is going to go broke, and they're messing with the military retirement, but you never hear of any problems with congressional retirement. You could ask me about that, and I could go into it. But this is the thing: is that they just need to actually say, okay, this is the standard, and this is what it's got to be, and this is what we go to. See, and it's like on motor vehicles. The deal is, it's cleaner fuels is really the problem, because cleaner gasoline affects the brand new car. It also affects the old cars and the lawnmowers and all that kind of stuff. Same with the thing, because like here, they don't talk about the pollution off the jet planes that fly in and out of the airport, and they don't talk about the pollution from the towboats going up and down the Columbia River.
All right. For me, it's the amount of pollution that they're putting into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And depends on those things that I think produce more than the others, that I would address those first. Those are the most important considerations for me. But now we have a question here about sales tax, and that's pretty interesting and controversial among the population here in Oregon too. And I've heard arguments from both sides, and I wonder if we can talk about your views on a sales tax in Oregon.
No sales tax, no sales tax, no sales tax. Because one of the things is, if you go for sales tax, you actually have to set up a system to collect it. And the thing is that when people come around here and they're surprised, something's $4.95 and they lay $5 on the table and they got a handful of change, and they're really surprised when they get a nickel back. And and the thing is that the Oregon income tax rate in Oregon is 9 and 9.9%. It was 9 and 11, but it's 9 and 9.9%. And I figured out my taxes is to do away with the deductions and exemptions. It would cost me $4,800 a year, $400 a month. And the system's already there, so the system of collecting isn't any more expensive. So you're going to have that money go directly into it, and then into the government agencies, and then spent. And I would rather do $400 a month in a check rather than being nickel to dime every time I turn around. So
would you rather have a sales tax or not?
No. No sales tax.
Just confirming, we're here directly.
No sales tax. In fact, they were talking about one calling it's a gross receipts tax. Now, the gross receipts tax is like a VAT tax. And the deal is every time the good moves from one level of the market to the next before it comes to you, there's a little tax on it, see? And which is like a sales tax for businesses. And people saying, well, business is going to pay for it. No, the people pay for it. And the thing is, by having a VAT tax or a
value-added
gross
tax.
receipts tax, the value-added tax, the VAT tax, or the gross receipts tax is, it will probably reduce the, increase the cost of the goods, maybe 20%.
Now, our time is running low, but I got to ask you a couple more questions.
Sure,
Let's see here.
sure.
Jury nullification. What does that mean for some of us who don't know what that really means? And what do you think about it?
Well, there's an organization that I belong to, the slips my mind. But anyway, jury nullification is the fact that you're on the jury and you judge not only the law, what happened in a case, but the facts and the law. And you could say, because there was a case in upper Midwest several years ago, a guy broke in his house and he attacked this woman, and she, with a frying pan, killed him, see? Well, they wanted to try her for murder, and because she had killed this guy. And this guy was a perpetual criminal and really kept the criminal justice system going because he was in and out all the time. And anyway, they asked, finally, it says, you know, you could have gone down to the basement, gone across the basement, and crawled up on the boxes and crawled out, you know. Crawling out a basement window might be good for a 3-year-old kid, but not for an adult. So anyway, they asked that, and so the lady pulled up her dress and threw the artificial leg out on the floor and says, well, it was in the shop. And the prosecutor was stunned when the people found her not guilty, even though she had killed this guy, and in fact it was self-defense, you know. But this is the fact that, you know, something happens, maybe you were justified in doing what you did, even though it was against the law, you still should not be penalized.
How does jury nullification come into play with what you're talking about right now?
It means that the jury can find somebody who, say, did something not guilty, because that is the moral thing to do.
And the jury does this, and what about the judge? Does he have a role to play in this anymore?
They are not supposed to, and the deal is the criminal justice industrial complex, the conviction business, because that's their thing, is the conviction business. They want the convictions, you know. And when they find people are innocent, they don't want to admit that they made a mistake.
You think jury nullification is a good thing?
Yes, I do, because it's the right thing to do in many cases, and a lot of people who have had to do things might have been justified for it.
And who decides that the jury nullification is in effect on a given case? The judge?
Jury does. The jury.
The jury does.
The judges, the thing is, when they say that this is what you got to do, no, because they don't tell you about your right as a juror to find the defendant not guilty, because that's not what the prosecutor and the judge wants.
So after I'm sorry for interrupting you, but time is running short.
Yeah.
Now, after the jury has deliberated and they report to the judge and say, we find this person not guilty, and never mind what the judge says, that means that person is not guilty because the jury has decided.
That's right. You have the deal is you have the prosecution and you have the defense. The judge is the referee. The boss is the jury. And people who go on jury need to know that they are the boss. That goes back to the time of William Penn.
John, one more quickie, because they're going to yell at me if we don't stop.
Okay.
You have talk about prison reform. Why should we have prison reform? What does that mean to you?
Okay, what they have now is they're trying to put like 20 gallons of water into a 5-gallon bucket. See, and they pulled the con job in California, the corrections officers union, to have more and more space. Texas has 150,000 spaces. California has 140,000, and we have about 15,000. And the thing is, by having reform, I'd say no death penalty, because the winners in that is the lawyers, the no life without parole, no parole board, because parole boards keep people they should let out, and they let people out they should keep. You have a seniority force out. So you have the, say, 15,000 people in Oregon, and you have somebody commits a crime, they should go in, they go in, and then somebody goes out the other end. And the thing is, under the prison system, people get started in crime, they get their hands slapped. When they finally get some time, they've got a great big laundry list for the crimes they committed. But if you have this, the most people who get in trouble with the law, they never get in trouble again. So then this is the thing, is you also have expungement.
So this is going to reform the prison system, what you're talking about?
That'd be part of it, yeah, because the deal is, it's not the severity of the punishment, it is the swiftness and sureness. You know, you steal somebody's car and you get caught, you're going to go to jail.
What about though, so many prisons have double what their capacity is about? Do we have too many prisons?
No, the deal is, the criminal element's only 2% of the population. And so the deal is you're getting, but if you have it where they go in and then they get processed out, the thing is that they serve some time. The fact is that they get the idea that they know that if they do something wrong, they get caught, they get convicted, they're going in.
So what would you do for the population, overpopulation of the prisons?
The deal is you would say, okay, you'd line up in the prison system, you'd have prison system space 1, and you have prison space 150,000 or 15,000, whatever it is, and you just have it lined up, and the people would, who they're convicted by Friday, would be sent in on Monday, and the people over the weekend would be shifted a little bit. So the deal is, these people would move, basically every week they would move to a new cell.
John, they're going to put you and I both in jail unless we stop.
Be nice, guys, be nice.
Now look at that camera and tell the viewers one final thing you can tell them that maybe of use for them. Say something to them.
Well, I'm running for Oregon State Senate in Senate District 21, and for those of you in Senate District 21, I'd sure like your vote, because I'd like to work for you. And remember, when you go to vote, voting is hiring. The thing is, when you look at that person there, would you really want to hire them?
Okay, we need to stop now, or they're going to beat me up. So thanks again for coming on.
A real pleasure.
We will talk some more later on.
Okay.
All right?